We had the three presentations from the Sinam, Lisa, and Satoshi. And so next the floor, the firstly, the Bianca, the Junichi was comment and input from the gender aspect. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Junichi. Thank you very much to the three presenters. I had a chance to visit INDNESIA, the radio station in Fukushima, and I was really very much impressed by the work they're doing in preparation for disaster. And I liked your title, Living in Harmony with Disaster. I would like to just focus on a few points that from the information that we gathered from the different women around Asia-Pacific region, what they are confronted with in disaster situations, and which I think we need to take into account when it comes to disaster preparedness, but when it also comes to disaster response. One is when the communities are informed how to react in case of disaster, where to go, where are the evacuation centers. In Bangladesh, they did the experience that it's usually the head of the family who is invited to a community meeting, meaning the man in most cases, and then the organizers suppose that the man will go home and tell the information, share the information with the family, which in many cases does not happen. So the women do not know where to go, and Bangladesh, for instance, a Muslim country, some families are still restricting women from going out of the house alone. So in Bangladesh, they experience floods every year. So in case of floods, the women are waiting at home. They don't know where to go, and they wait for their male family members to come and pick them, to tell them where to go. But sometimes their male family members have to save their own lives. So the women are dying in their houses instead of going to higher places. Because one, they're not allowed to go out of the house alone. Two, they also don't know because the information has not been transmitted to the rest of the family, also the kids. Then the other thing is, during the tsunami, there were in Indonesia and in other places experienced that many more women died in the tsunami than men. And what were some of the reasons why? Again, it's floods. One was women traditionally, also that's an experience in Bangladesh, women traditionally from small childhood, we don't learn how to climb trees. Very few women or children are allowed to climb trees. So there's not this habit that you just run for the highest thing and you try to climb on a roof of a house, you try to climb. Women do not have, sometimes women have clothes like the sari that do prevent them, or even sometimes they get strangled by the scarf, which is part of their clothes. Women are not used to run. Many women do not have any chances to run. So all these things have to be taken into consideration. The other thing also, or in preparedness, maybe women should also have clothes ready that is covering their body properly, but enables them to run faster. Same also is women are usually the ones who are taking care of the children, of the elderly, and also of differently able people in the family. So that's also one reason why, while the men were able to run for their lives, the children were not able to run as fast because they had to take care of the children. The women were not able to run. So I think we have to see also how can women, are women able to go, for instance, in case of tsunami or in case of floods, to higher levels with their kids, with the family members they're taking care of. Just heard the story of one radio station in Tacloban in the Philippines, where one of the radio workers, a mother, brought her two kids to the radio station hoping that they were safe there. Unfortunately, the radio station was completely flooded and they were all killed. but I mean that's what women go through. They are usually the one who take the kids to safe places, or hopefully safe places. So this is all things I think we have to consider when we are doing preparedness. When it comes to response, disaster response, when I was in Manila during the floods in 2009, and we went for relief drives to the evacuation center, the first thing that the women were always saying, did you bring panties? Did you bring underwear? Because for 5 days we are in the same underwear. And we just can't stand it any longer. So that's something that is often being forgotten. Sanitary napkins, but also diapers for the babies. Because you don't have anything, everything, and the pictures we saw from the Philippines, those kids have been for how long in the same wet clothes. And the same for women and their babies. And often, especially children are very, very vulnerable to sicknesses in the aftermath of a disaster. And if they're not in dry clothes, then that makes them even more vulnerable. Another thing is also that in the tsunami in Sri Lanka, women who were hurt during the tsunami and their clothes were destroyed, they were no longer properly dressed, so they were afraid to call for help. Because it might be a man who is finding them and they are not properly dressed, and that might give a bad reputation to the woman later in the society or difficult situation. So that has also to be, I think it is also a lot of consciousness raising in the preparedness work, that the life is more important than the way you're dressed in that moment. But it's a question of dignity. So I think also if you have volunteers who are helping, they have to be trained to really keep the dignity and integrity of the person, especially of the women, if their clothes are destroyed because of the disaster, what they experienced. After the disaster, in the evacuation center, we have received reports from the Philippines that there has been rape cases already in the evacuation center, that there has been harassment, that also sometimes young girls, women are very vulnerable because often the toilets are either far away from the center, no bad lighting, no electricity many times. So there have to be measures taken in the evacuation center to make it safe for women to go to the toilets, to be in a safe place, and to make them safe for any kind of harassment or violence against women. And then I think one thing that is very important, what the radio stations play a very important role as well, is in the response to the disaster is in trauma healing. Because I think it was mentioned also by some of you that trauma healing is very important, and from Indonesia some women were telling us that they were so, the radio station was there, but it was broadcasting mainly during the day, but they needed company during the night because they couldn't sleep because of the trauma. And if there was only just one voice and they could have a small transistor radio at their ear because they didn't want to wake the others in the evacuation center, but there was at least a voice or a music or something that would accompany them through the night. That was very important for them. And I think the women's organization I used to work with in the Philippines, Gabriela, they have already started now with the relief activities to do first trauma healing and stress reduction workshops in the communities and train people in trauma healing and stress reduction, which I guess is very important and often. I guess all of this, to take into account all of these things, is much easier if in the radio stations, in the organizations, community organizations that do disaster preparedness workshops or trainings, there are women leaders, there are women role models. I think that helps a lot in taking all these things into account and a lot more. Okay, I think that's it, but then I think Sister Lina would also like to add from the Philippines.
Actually, we're really concerned about what's happening in the Philippines lately because that we are used to typhoons. No? Every year we are visited by almost 33 typhoons every year. So we're used to, we grow up with a typhoon. But before, it's not that intense. Lately, it's really intense. No? It's beyond our imagination, beyond our expectation. So much so that our preparation is not enough. You've heard and you've seen in the internet, in the television, that some parts of our, especially in the Visayas lately, it's really devastated. Many people died, around more than 5,000, and there are many people still missing. And many people in that place left already there because you cannot live there. No? It's totally, they have to start their lives all over again. So they are now, they transferred to Manila, some in Cebu, so in nearby provinces. So practically they left the place because it's so hard to build up again. They need rebuilding, total rebuilding the place. So that's our situation now, and sad to say that we're really unprepared. And the community radio there, actually there are lots of community radio, but it's not recognized on the national level. No? The community radio where I work is run by a religious organization, Catholic, and it's called Catholic Media Network, and it's more than around 60 radio stations operating independently throughout the country. So our programming is, especially in the provinces, they're independent. They prepare their programs independently, so they have their own programming. Not all religious programs, but also about livelihood, about the issues concerning the Philippines, about health matters, and many others. So it also covers all the issues in the country. So, but the one very active there is the mainstream media. It's the one providing all of us with the information, and maybe the community radio. And the community radio there are operated privately, some by politicians, and they use it for their campaign sometimes. But there are lots of community radio in the Philippines, but only they are not recognized on a national level. That's why they don't have probably the complete listing of the radio station existing. And there are only two, maybe Amarc member or Amarc help Radio Sagada, and there is still one in Bohol mentioned by they help it. So there are only two members among the radio, community radio. There are only two members of Amarc, and hopefully four, and hopefully so Mr. Suman Basnet expressed that we will put up emergency radio community radio station there, especially in the hardly hit place of the lately with Typhoon Haiyan, especially to help in facilitating the relief goods, because there are many remote areas not covered by mainstream media. They only focus on the big city, but there are many places. You know, Philippines is composed of 7,107 islands. No? That's a very small country with so many islands, and 2,000 of these islands are not inhabited by people. Okay, so very small country, and yet so cluttered, so scattered, so with different dialects. So that is the situation of our country. And now we have volcanoes. Many those volcanoes dormant for so many years now becoming active. So this is part of the climate change. And before Typhoon Haiyan, or call it Typhoon Yolanda, we have this very strong earthquake, 7.2 magnitude, which break all the churches, ancient churches. So it's really beyond our, I don't know what's happening with our country. Maybe we will be, hopefully we will not be wiped out in the map. Because we are really, one after another, are visited by terrible natural calamities. So I just hope that community radio there, Amarc could help us really, that many more community radios would be a member of Amarc. So that there could be, we learn a lot from this. Actually, we belong to a religious organization, and there's no secular media attending here. Mainstream media attending here, only us and Maika. And so this is the second time that I attended Amarc. I attended the trainers program in Bangkok, and this is the second time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My name is Sinam. I am coming from Bangladesh. We are running a community radio in coastal belts, namely Radio Now. Actually, it's very important components, climate change adaptation, disaster preparedness and climate change for coastal belt community radio particularly. Recently, we have some good experience to overcome the situations. You know, Mahasi, there are all kinds of storm. So we learn community radio like friends of community. Friends of community, because disaster period we saw no electricity, no others media, but community radio only to support the community peoples through generator. And we learned community government peoples come and they are very much dependent to community radio. So that initially we are trying to way to communicate the community peoples. Some we conducted some off-air programs, that is preparatory works. We have a listener group and voluntary groups. We are providing training and orientation regarding these issues. So when sorts of events, so that people's or volunteers easy access to the community radio. Now, and second observation is networking with the government and Ministry of Disaster and Red Cross Society, because we have no mass resources. Community radio no mass resources. Resources have government and other people. So that we need more networking with the local government and others department of the state. So it is very important topic. So and I think community radio can great role to prevent sorts of issues. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. So, for your information, the last year, I described one booklet about the role of the community radio in disaster. So, Imam, he put a lot of the experience to me before writing this book. So, the booklet written in English and Japanese, you can download the article so deal with every type every phase of the disaster. So please use this. Unfortunately today we have only 3 booklets, but so you can download from the website. I will inform you. Okay, so are there any person who have a comment and a question to the panelists? And also are there anyone who want to give input to the discussion? Yep.
Thank you. My name is Panya. I come from Cambodia. Yes. I'm from the organization called Building Community Voice. As I mentioned in the workshop yesterday, Building Community Voice is the first organization that help to support community to build their own community station Cambodia, and recently there is no community radio station that managed by the community itself. So it's really important for me to attend this workshop that I see that it's a good opportunity for community to use the radio to alert or to announce to the community for adapt to the climate or prevent themselves from disaster. Actually, in Cambodia there is no earthquake, no worse storm like tsunami, like in Japan or in the Philippines. But we have some other kind of natural disaster like floods or drought. So I would like to ask the question that is there any ways, or is good or not, that we produce the radio program that educate community. It's not for adaptation or not for other thing, but to prevent from disaster. It's good to adapt, but how to adapt with drought? How to adapt with the flood? If their rice paddy is destroyed, their stomach going to empty. So can we use this kind of radio program to educate people how to prevent themselves from just adapt to the climate or to the disaster? Thank you.
Yes. So only 10 minutes left. So we're sorry, the one question. So we can receive.
This is not the questions, rather like kind of
Yes.
the recommendation.
Yes. Tell me your name.
My name
Yes.
is Samoku Kanayama
Yeah.
from Japan, and a kind of the colleague with the Hibino-san. And it's kind of the recommendations because we had researched on the emergency radio stations in Tohoku areas, and we found that we need to exchange the information and then maybe experience and knowledge about how to use the radio stations, how to useful for the disasters. So I think it's not only the Japan situations, rather it's the global issues. So I just hear that your presentations, maybe if you have on the website, whatever, we can exchange the whole information using the emergency radio stations, which may be useful for the situation in the Philippines phase 2. So maybe I want to encourage you to set up the website. That's all.
Thank you very much. So maybe Sinam is you can respond. You can give a response to the question from the gentleman from Cambodia.
Baik, pertama saya akan merespon yang disampaikan demikian. Tahap persiapan, saya kira definisi Amarc tentang radio komunitas jelas bahwa radio komunitas itu bukan soal radio melakukan sesuatu untuk komunitas, itu komunitas melakukan sesuatu untuk dirinya sendiri. Maka dalam konteks ini bagaimana melibatkan perempuan dalam pengelolaan radio. Sinam give response what Bianca already mentioned. He mentioned that it's already clear the status of community radio in Amarc. Community radio not give something, not only give something to the community, but its community itself use radio to do what they want to do. So one of the important thing is how to involve women in the radio. Then they can use as well for preparation, the preparedness.
That's one point that Sinam respond.
Selanjutnya, dan ini dibuktikan dengan saat terjadi bencana di Merapi. Pertama yang kami lihat bahwa ternyata perempuan jauh lebih jeli dibandingkan laki-laki. Perempuan desa itu kader posyandu itu memegang data langsung tentang berapa perempuan dan berapa laki-laki yang ada di desa.
It is approved by Merapi disaster. When it happened, according to Sinam, that's the women's group is smarter than men. They part of the health cadres in the village, and they keep all the data, disaggregated data. How many women and how many men, and what they should do. So the cadres, the health cadres, usually is women, they give information and data to the radio station, and then radio station use those data to inform the public through broadcast the information.
Nah, salah satu fungsi radio komunitas saat terjadi bencana, mereka harus pergi, jadi pasti sudah tidak bersiaran. Nah, tapi kebiasaan mengelola informasi itu kemudian ke bawah di lokasi pengungsian, gitu. Nah, di sana kemudian dia bisa memberikan informasi yang jelas pada pihak-pihak yang mau mendukung. Biasanya kalau terjadi bencana orang di Indonesia, orang menyumbang itu dengan instan, kemudian pakaian bekas, itu yang dijual. Tapi begitu ada informasi, kita tahu kebutuhan berapa orang di situ, berapa perempuan, berapa anak, kemudian ada kebutuhan. Orang yang mau membantu bertanya, saya punya uang 1 juta, harus belanja apa? Kemudian belanja di Merapi, kita butuh membalut sekian, kita butuh popok bayi sekian, kita butuh pakaian dalam tubuh, sehingga bantuan yang masuk juga menjamin kebutuhan perempuan.
So because of the group of women already understand how to broadcast the appropriate information. When after the erupted, of course the radio is closed because all the people gone to the barracks, to the tents. But because they understanding and they aware, so they use those information to the social media, through Twitter, to website, to send the information. How many people stay in the barracks, women, children, babies, and what kind of support they need. How many pampers, sanitary napkins, something else. Then the Jalin Merapi put it in a website. In this barrack, in this tent, in this village, need 100, for example, napkins, 100 pampers, something like that. So that's how Jalin Merapi manages the data and use the data. Previously, like example when Aceh, it is not really happen because of there is no information coming from the field. So people, volunteers, donator, they just send noodles, instant. They just send milk. How many milk, how many noodle instant, and how many rice, or they don't know. That just send. So because of the data is coming from the field, it is easy to people understand and then manage what if, for example, if I'm coming from outside, then I have, for example, $100 US, then I can give to the group. I can say that I want to give 10 sanitary napkins, 10 pampers, for the babies, So that's what the experience of Jalan Merapi.
Dan yang terakhir mungkin sekarang yang tadi dari kalau bagaimana mitigasinya, saya kira kalau mitigasinya kembali bahwa di kami di JPKI di Jalan Merapi percaya masyarakat sesungguhnya punya cara-cara terdahulu. Bagaimana kemudian mengajak masyarakat kembali mendiskusikan itu, karena masing-masing bencana punya karakter yang berbeda-beda. Itu sesungguhnya bisa dipelajari sendiri oleh masyarakat. Jadi tools apapun kemudian yang akan membantu masyarakat mengenali cara-caranya.
Yeah, in the case of several disaster affected area in Indonesia, especially in Merapi, when because they understand that the people, community radio, social media, and whatever information coming from outside, it is only a tool to help them. But usually they understand. I mean, the old people still understand how to mitigate the disasters already happened 100 years ago, 10 years ago. Usually, like for example, they understand about the within 4 years, Merapi will erupt. So what should we do? So according to their grandfather, and then those kind of activity it should they use. So they believe that people knows how to like to treat with their local wisdom. So mitigation is very important, mapping is very important, and how to create the information to make a lot of people aware through community by broadcasting those kind of issues. That's the experience of Jalan Merapi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, so the passing of the knowledge, so traditional knowledge and experience is one of the role of the community radio. So these are definitely, so maybe you can input the response regarding the real education.
Okay. The question is quite a hard one, especially when it deals with floods and droughts. Just at the moment for the Pacific, we're already talking about adaptation. We have them ongoing, so I think the disasters are ongoing, so we are already talking about adaptation. And just recently, we're kind of thinking that we don't need to talk about mitigation now. We're over that stage, and what we are looking at the moment is maybe climate justice, compensation, because we kind of feel that we are shouldering something that's not of our making. Okay, some of for the radio programs, most of them, apart from what I would say today, education, how we do awareness on things like you have to move away from the rivers and all that. But then again, it depends on the population of certain countries. Like for us, we can say move away from the rivers because there is still land somewhere that they can relocate to. So it depends very much on things like land availability, population patterns, and for drought. One of the most important things that we usually tell them on the radio programs is how they can preserve food. Traditionally, because that's what all of our people know, their traditional methods of preserving food. Not only that, but preserving planting materials that they can later plant when the season's right, because we are forever looking at seasons that are suitable for us to use. planting. And of course, environmental programs. We are forever talking about environmental destructions in the name of development that are happening in our countries, especially from where I come from. We have lots of logging and all that. And we tell our people why it's important not to log the forests and all that. The impacts that would somewhat catch up on us if we are not careful with such development, or we allow them to happen to us. And yeah, but then it depends entirely on how our people take it. You can say everything that's suitable for them to live by, but then when it comes to money, it's like they don't know where to decide. They will always call for what that we see as destruction. But then, because of the money part, they can't forget that it's going to spoil their life afterwards until they cross the bridge and then they know, okay, it's here, and we have to live with it. And that's what's happening with us. Yes, yeah, I think that's
Thank you very much. So, time is 4:05.
じゃあ、今回の日本の震災で、避難所が半年とか1年あったんですけども、その中で、日本ではあまり障害を持つ人とかが、表に出ていないので、すごく居づらい思いをしました。精神的な障害とか、そういう障害です。子供とかですね、自閉症です。そういう子は、結構居づらい思いをしたり、あとやっぱ高齢者を持っている家庭は、避難したくてもそこの避難所にはやっぱりちょっと行けないだろうという、その体育館みたいなところに暮らせないだろうということがあって、今回の震災を受けて事前にできることとしては、そういう、すごくマイノリティの目立たない方もいっぱいいるんだっていうことを、伝えて、それを、受け入れてくれるような社会に、しなければ、もし次にそういう大きな震災が起きたときに、そういう人たちは行き場所がないし、そういう人の行き場所も作ってもらえないようなことになるので、それは、日本の場合なんですけれども、日本社会がそうなっていってくれるといいなと思います。
Japanese social context, minority such as people with disabilities or elders have not been enough visualized, and so they are still marginalized. And this time at evacuation centers or shelters, those people suffer, and not only them, families with those people were hesitant to go to the gymnasium or evacuation center. So when we look at the future, we need to make our community ready to visualize those people and prevent this kind of example in the future. So that's what I think.
So that point of view is very important, the same as well as the point of view of the gender. So when the disaster occurs, so unfortunately people tend to focus on the general response activity. It means losing the sensibility and so consideration for the minority people such as the women and so disability. So the community radio can raise awareness of the vulnerable people, especially in the disaster. Of course, before disaster, sure. So, yeah, today in this workshop, we have a lot of the discussion. But so we want to continue to the discussion about climate change adaptation and the disaster preparedness and the climate justice. So, but we don't have a time. So if if we want, fortunately we have two more days, so we can continue to discuss person to person, and also so put the comment and so consideration to our discussion by email. So my email is HIBIN. Yeah. HIBINO@tcc117.org. So we add our consideration to the next regional plan. Okay. So thank you very much for making the presentation for three panels, and so Bianca and the lady from the Philippines, and also thank you very much for the translation, Imam and the Tetsuo, and the lady for the Korea. Thank you very much.